Welcome back to another episode of Video Nerds. I'm the ManNerd, and I'm here with... Who am I here with?
Me, Mr. StephenShred, as some people know me.
That's everybody knows you like that. All right, so today we are going to be going through a season of a show. And I got a question for you. How did that intro song make you feel about what we're going to review today?
Pretty epic.
For me, I was going for that, end of the world sadness, but you want to push through it.
Definitely feel it. Which is perfect for what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's perfect. I'm going to let you go for it. Tell us what we're talking about today.
So today we are going to be talking about HBO's adaptation of the amazing game series The Last of Us. And It is a game that I played back when it released, and then I played it again on PS4, and then I played it again a little bit later on before The Last of Us 2 came out, which we will not be talking about today because Mandrew has not played any of the games.
I have not played any of the games, so all I know about is the show, just the first season, which is the first game, like exactly, right?
Pretty close. There are some things that are very different. Frank's story, extremely different. The whole, I cannot remember her name. The woman who is also from 2.5 Men, her whole thing with like the rebellion and taking over area. And them hunting down Sam and Henry. That whole thing was completely new to the show. For the most part, like I've even seen some videos of comparisons. Lines of dialogue are exactly the same. Scenes are shot the exact same way. Like there is one weird difference that I found though, as when they were doing the scene comparisons. For some reason, there were scenes where in game the characters are yelling, and in the show they're a little more, speaking at an even voice, and then vice versa, where in the show they're yelling and in the game they're speaking in a more even voice. It was weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that. Now, how did that translate? Did it work for both versions of that, or was it just odd?
It definitely worked in the context of what they're trying to show. There are a few things that definitely were not off-putting at all, but like definitely set things apart, especially the final episode, the final moments of the episode. There was a change in the way that you kind of see Joel, if that makes sense. I don't know if you want to get into the finale immediately or if you want to lead up to that.
I think we'll lead up to that,
all right,
but that's good. Definitely one of the topics I want to get to.
Yeah.
Now, let's start with a quick, no spoilers movie. Well, not movie because I always do movies. Show review.
Yeah.
So, I think you went last time first, so I'll jump in. As not knowing the games too much, I'd say that this series was actually very, very solid. I enjoyed the build-up. At first, I didn't like some of the characters, but we'll get into that. And then it eventually like grew on me like, yeah, actually that works really well. And I'd say that for a post-apocalyptic storyline, that was very cool. They didn't really go too much into the monster aspect. It was very story and character driven, in my opinion. I'll definitely give this a full rating, a D20 for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you think?
For me, I went into this knowing that if they adapted the game like they did, that it would be amazing, because the game has some of the most compelling story. That's such an overused phrase, but it's characters, all their motives, everything is justified and it all makes sense. The story, the way it changes, the way that Ellie and Joel's relationship grows, it all feels like real and possible, because my biggest thing is when two characters start to bond and they get that like that family, they become family. I hate when it's rushed, because then it's like, oh, okay, so you're doing it for the plot. It doesn't really.
Yeah, it makes you feel like, oh, they're just supposed to feel that way, but you don't really feel that. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, the biggest one that I always go back to is the original Suicide Squad movie, where at the end she's like, oh, it's okay, we're family. And what the hell, you guys barely know each other.
Like, you hated each other the whole movie.
Yeah, like they didn't do anything that would actually build meaningful relationships. It was just kind of like, oh, for the plot, they got to care about each other, and that's why they help each other out. But Ellie and Joel's relationship, from the very beginning all the way until the end, it makes sense why they have that, especially for Joel's perspective. Like, it makes sense that she would start to fall into that like daughter role for him. So yeah. I love the series. I'm still not familiar with the Dungeons and Dragons dice thing.
Basically, a 100% is a D20, and then a notch down from that's going to be a D12, D10, D8, D6, D4.
Jeez. Okay, we'll just go D20.
D20, got it.
It's one of my favorite game series. I have yet to replay The Last of Us 2 because, we're not going to give any spoilers, but it is a game that weighs very heavy on the heart. All throughout the game, it's especially rough when you're going from playing The Last of Us, the first one, multiple times, and just really getting attached to like everything that the world is.
I'm guessing it changes a lot then.
It echoes the idea that they live in a very unforgiving world.
Okay.
I will leave it at that. There's just a lot going on. So I have not had the heart to play it again. I played through it the very first weekend that it came out, which I believe it was like a 22-hour playthrough or something like that.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
And I was like, I'll go back for the platinum. I never went back. That was like 3 years ago. But
oh, man. So the second season's going to be rough.
They're going to be breaking up The Last of Us 2 into into 1 or 2 seasons. So I believe we won't get the full Last of Us 2 until we get into the 3rd season. Which makes sense because it introduces a lot more characters and it expands on the world a lot. So you start to see things from multiple sides. And if they try to do that in one season, that would get very messy.
Yeah, because that would be just too rushed. It would be like what you said before. It's like no character growth. The story would be way too rushed.
Yeah, it'd be like some Spider-Man 3 action where they introduce like 3 villains at the same time. You're just like, what?
Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the spoilers, and you know what this means.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Yep, I can't get enough of that. All right. So now, first episode, you get thrust into this world. Basically the beginning of it, which is pretty epic. So I want to tell you my thoughts on that first episode, on how everything just started to go to crap right off the bat. And then I want you to tell me your reaction from playing the game and how it differed.
All right.
So for me, it was very, very epic. Like I said, it was intense. Everything went to crap very quickly. People started changing. It was the standard zombie apocalypse type of situation. But what differentiated it from other things to me was Joel and his daughter's relationship. That was very quickly get thrust into that, but I believed it. I felt like they were family right off the bat. And then what happened later just broke my heart. And the action between that just made that so much cooler. Even going through the town and the car chase, and that was just great.
Yeah. Like, for me, it is almost a shot for shot, like with the game's opening. There are differences, like the whole Sarah going shopping and all that stuff. That didn't happen in the games. The games start that night it was definitely different. You don't get the whole like neighbor interaction or anything like that. I believe you play as Sarah, you're going around, and if I remember correctly, Joel's already home, so he just scoops her up and they just go. So like,
Okay. So you just start right into the action.
pretty much, but it is a longer section. I believe the entire section is about like an hour long, maybe 40 minutes, but it all leads up to the same place. So I knew exactly where it was going, and yeah, I played through it multiple times. That part never gets any easier. That part is always just rough, and they did a really good job of conveying everything. Like it's one thing to introduce a father and daughter, it's another thing to show the care they have for each other and kind of like get the thing of like, you know, they're father and daughter, but they do really care about each other, they have a really good relationship, and break that.
Break it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, so we're already into spoilers. So his daughter gets killed the night of, and you could tell that that's what made him who he is later. Yeah, that was dark.
Yeah, playing that back in 2013 when the game came out, I was just like, what? So that was like,
oh man,
that was like I know what's about to go down, let's see how everybody else reacts kind of moment.
oh yeah, and that definitely got me. Now after that, it jumps like super far into the future, like 23 years after the outbreak, and you just see the world has turned to complete and utter shit. How would you compare the world in this cityscape that they're in, this quarantine zone, compared to other games and other post-apocalyptic movies and shows that you've seen?
I would say it's very similar. The thing that The Last of Us had over anything else for me was I thought the reasoning for the apocalypse was very creative.
Yeah, definitely.
And the other thing is the characters. As far as the world in itself, the idea that, you know, the zombies are an issue, but people are also a big issue. That's very common in, you know, any apocalyptic thing that you could possibly bring up, whether it be zombies, whether it be nuclear holocaust, like any of that kind of stuff. It's just, you know, people are bad too. So, and then, you know, you have these government types that bring everything together, but it's very strict, and they live in these zones that, you know, just feel like I don't know, dictatorships in themselves. It's very,
some of them are worse than others, you find out.
Yeah, so it's very common within the genre. So as far as The Last of Us setting itself is like apart with that aspect, it doesn't really, but in the sense that it gives us an idea of where all of that led Joel. Like I think it fits the story well and everything. Like we see the next episode, it picks up like you were saying, and Joel is you know, he's running meds and all kinds of stuff and drugs, just getting his hands on whatever he can outside of the zone, and then selling it back inside, and then cutting some of the, I guess, cops in on it.
Yep.
So
Glorified security guards.
yeah, pretty much, with bigger guns.
Yeah, way bigger guns.
Yeah, so it like gives you an idea of the kind of world that it shaped, but at the same time, it's, you know, very within the realm of possibility of what would really happen. You know, you get quote unquote safe area, somebody takes it over, and then it just becomes this weird power dynamic between the people there and the people that are in control.
Yeah, that are supposedly keeping them safe. But it got to a point where they don't really have to do much to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal, how did you feel like he changed from the beginning of the first episode, being a father, and then 23 years later?
The character as a whole, like the The jump isn't that far in the games. I believe the jump in the games is just 10 years.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, but I felt like it made sense because you have somebody who, you know, the thing that they cared about most in the world's taken from them. They're thrown into this world where everything from before doesn't really matter anymore, and things are getting even harsher. Yeah, so it's like, it makes sense that he goes down this darker path, especially with the stuff with his brother, where his brother's just not with him anymore. Now he's just kind of solo doing what he does. He does have Tess, his I believe they made him his girlfriend in the show.
Yeah, in the show they were pretty much dating.
Yeah, in the games they did not have a relationship. They were just like
work partners.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was another change. But
yeah, and that's what I thought at first, and then they kind of hinted towards the relationship.
Yeah, they hinted at that a few different times, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, in the games there was none of that, so that was a random one. But like I said, it makes sense later in. So as the story progressed, how did you start feeling about everything once we leave the quarantine zone and the story starts to pick up with Ellie being brought in?
For me, I had a really hard time with Ellie. Like, I did not like her at all. And I thought she was just a brat kid, just very mouthy. And I was like, why did they pick this person? And then as it went on, I was like, she actually grew as a character, as a person, and started to bond with Joel, and that actually did it for me. And then the nail in the coffin was later on when you're like, that's the voice actress that plays her in the game, and she was playing her mom in the series on one of the last episodes. And I was like, holy shit, she looks just like her. Like, they did that on purpose, and that kind of just put it all together for me. And I was like, hell yeah. That was the biggest problem for me. Everything else was just flowed very well. The world that they were in was incredible. Going to the different places, even Tommy's community, I felt like that was very cool, and it kind of makes you wonder when that's gonna fall apart. But anyway, the other communities kind of suck, especially in the second to last episode.
Yeah.
That guy. We all hate that guy.
Yeah, that was another one that was almost shot for shot.
Yeah. Oh, dear God. Yeah, that was actually very, very awesome. And, oh man, what city were they fleeing with that big horde that came out with the giant monster? That was probably one of my favorite parts, because that was so intense.
I don't remember exactly.
Well, anyway, it was this horde of these things coming from the ground, these mushroom monsters, and then that giant monster. Was that the only big bad boss in the game? I don't think it should be, because it's a monster video game. You should probably have a lot more.
I mean, the clickers serve as not really bosses, but like, a difficult thing to deal with. Those ones, I don't remember. I don't know why I don't remember what they were called. But there were a few different variants, and the big guys were one of them. It wasn't a one-time thing, though. You had to face them quite a few times.
So was that basically a game, instead of like going from big boss to big boss, it was like you're just traversing the environment and surviving? Is that how it went?
Pretty much. There was no big boss fight or anything like that. It was more like different scenarios, and they were just like different kind of enemies that make certain areas more difficult.
Okay, so seems like they did that very well in the show then.
Yeah, the monsters were more obstacles to deal with as opposed to being the main focus, which I thought translated really well, because it would be really weird in a show if they're like, oh man, this is the one big bad monster that we got to take down before we could do anything else. When in reality, if you saw something like that and you had the option to leave, you'd probably just do that. You'd
run the hell away. Hell yeah, you would.
It's like, all right, well, we got to make it all the way over here, so let's just not even deal with this.
All right, so since we're kind of limited on time, I wanna hit a few different things here.
All right.
Bill and Frank. Let's talk about that. That wasn't in the game, but
Oh my god, that was so different.
I liked it because Nick Offerman, of course, he made it amazing because he's awesome.
Yeah.
But that was a very emotional episode.
Yeah. Very, very different in the games, which is funny because there is an entire area that you need to get through in the game with Frank's help. And it's kind of like he is just, the character is very similar, but the reasoning behind him being such like just a not so great dude is very different. Their relationship and everything, they made it like a really nice episode. Like they show the whole love story, they show, you know, things getting trying to think of a way to put it without like, oh, I mean, we already gave with a spoiler warning, you know.
Yeah, you're good. You could say what you want.
Yeah, they show the whole, you know, them getting older, them dealing with issues, you know, and then ultimately their deaths, which none of that happens in the game. None of it at all. The game is way darker, I believe. So Frank holds an entire area. He does owe Joel a favor. So he has to go talk to him because he's going to help him with a car, I believe. So they get that all going. You go into a room. It's like a cinematic, and there's like a body hanging in there, and Frank is like dismissive of it because it is Bill.
Yeah, that's a huge difference, though. That whole episode.
Yeah, they made that a lot nicer.
Love story, trouble, and then getting to the point where they end up dying together at the same time.
Yeah, which changed like a few things, you know, because, you know, Frank's not there, which in the game he is, and he's just like cranky hermit, almost just staying away from everybody. He's like, all right, just get your stuff, get out of here. Like, it's very much the attitude in the games, which still kind of the attitude in the show, but you know, they open up with character a lot more.
Yeah. All right, so let's get down to the end, man. So the whole thing, Ellie, you found out she's immune, but you find that out pretty quickly in the beginning.
Yeah.
And how does that differ from the show to the game?
So in the game, you don't find out she's immune until a little later. It's still while Tess is alive, but it is not knowledge to the player, and it's not knowledge to Joel. I don't believe Tess knows either, but they find out, and it's not like a reveal thing. It's, can you get this kid to this place? And then that's like that. There's no like, and here's the reason why you need to do that. So that explanation wasn't there in the game. That comes like way later.
Do you think they should have followed the game, or do you think it worked pretty well by getting that out there early on?
I think getting it out there early on was probably the better move, because the game, we already bought the game. We're sitting down, we're playing it.
Yeah. You don't have to go through episodes.
Yeah, a show you don't need to go through. You don't need to know why this bratty kid needs to be transported and why it's so important. Like, you don't need to know any of that. It's just like, that episode is all right, but, you know, it's like The Walking Dead. You know, it could have been that. So it makes sense why they got straight into that. Why they're like, hey, this kid's important. Here's why. As opposed to, here's this bratty kid. And the assumption could just be like, oh, it's some like rich guy's daughter or something like that, you know? The typical reason why, you know, somebody needs to transport a kid.
All right, now let's get to the end, man. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the ending, the final episode, the setup is all exactly the same. The big difference that I felt was Pedro Pascal kind of just walks through everyone like the Terminator.
Yeah.
And it's just unfazed, like just goes in there and annihilates everybody with like little to no resistance. In the game, it's a little different. In the game, you fight your way through because they they figure out what you're up to, and it's like a big struggle and a big fight, and then you finally get to the end, and the end is shot for shot the same. Even the very, very final thing in the car when they're driving away, once he's taken Ellie away from the surgeons, the dialogue is the same. And then the way that he kills Marlene is exactly the same. Like even down to the dialogue, the things that Marlene says, the thing that Joel says to her is exactly the same.
Yeah, that was rough. He lies to her to save her life, but also keep her from putting her life on the line again, giving her life up. Oh, that's a rough choice. How does that shape the second game?
Shapes it a lot.
A lot, yeah. I figured. Yeah, because it ends on a big note, he saved her, but she could have saved humanity, so he just destroys everybody that knew. Yeah.
It was kind of cool that the show gave us an insight onto how exactly she's immune.
Yeah, that was actually really cool.
Yeah, the game, all of the outside stuff, like where the infection came from, who Ellie's mom was, the way that they're viewing the infection, the reason why she's immune, none of that is actually like in the game itself. You could find stuff in the game, like documents and things like that will kind of like paint the picture for you, which is why like you have like all these YouTube channels that have like the lore broken down and everything like that. It's the documents and all the side stuff that you find. None of the story in itself tells you any of that because, Joel's not a scientist.
Yeah.
So you're just playing from the perspective of somebody who's surviving it, not somebody who's studying it. So that's like the big difference. It's pretty cool though. I liked the added things. I liked the scenes that they chose to do shot for shot. Overall, I really enjoyed the series, and I'm really looking forward to season 2, which, knowing HBO, we probably won't get for another 2-3 years.
Yeah, unfortunately. And they added the voice actors from the game that you pointed out to me.
Yep, those are fun Easter eggs. They even have the voice actor for a very prominent figure in The Last of Us Part 2, but I won't get into that.
Oh, okay. All right. Until that comes out, which might be a while.
Yep.
We love the show. We recommend it. We gave you some spoilers, but we also left a lot out. So have fun. Yeah, until the next time. Hopefully we get another series or movie that's that good. Holy crap.
They're talking God of War, and they're talking Ghost of Tsushima.
Oof, okay. All right. We're going to have to go to that when those come out. All right. Well, we'll catch you later.
All right, later, everyone.